warriors already to give a fatal blow. Observe the sums of time, guided by civilization. Light a beacon, spread the words. The war cries sounding from afar. Fire and sword piercing through. We'll never surrender. For our lives, for victory. From the King of Glory. Turn a symbol, touch the sky. Together, hard champion charge without fear. Climb the highest mountain, the way to glory is higher than the sky. The sound of war fill the planet. And a hero that'll make history. Once we'll spread to kindness, temple the God will walk our battle people legends never end. Swords come through the gates of hell. All will be ready. Unstoppable warriors, impeccable strategies. When the sharpest of blades are drawn, enemies will be confronted. Symbol for all glory. Fight to the top. Let the world be the call. Storm is coming, reveal the mystery. Hidden warriors already to give a fatal blow. Observe the sums of time, guided by civilization. Light a beacon, spread the words. The war cries sounding from afar. Fire and sword piercing through. We'll never surrender. For our lives, for victory. From the King of Glory. Turn a symbol, touch the sky. Together, hard champion charge without fear. Climb the highest mountain, the way to glory is higher than the sky. The sound of war fill the planet. And a hero that'll make history. Once we'll spread to kindness, temple the God will.
What is going on, governors? Chiscool here, and today we're going to be casting the 93T versus 60 GT series. And joining me will be none other than Ruz, the legendary governor and wearer of traditional Roman armor here. Hey, Ruz, how are you today, man?
Hey, what's up? I'm doing good. How about you?
Hey, good, man. Just love that animation for you on screen here.
Oh my.
Looking forward to
Yep.
casting some matches with you today. 93T versus 60 GT. This match is so hype. And this part of the tournament is a best 2 out of 3. That's right, folks. We're getting close to the end of things here, and we're doing a 2 out of 3 for this round, which is big. So, yes, winning the first game obviously matters, but if you can adapt to what your opponent is doing, you could still come back and win the second round, win the third round, and be the one who moves on to the finals. So, Ruz, is this going to be a 2-game series, nice and easy, or is this going to 3 games?
I mean, for the sake of just a really good game or a really good series to watch, I really do wish it goes to full length and it goes to a full best of 3. I mean, this is one of the most anticipated, matchups in the Grand Prix so far. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these two sort of titans clash. I mean, we saw them fight in the grand finals for the OL season. So it'll be really, really good to see it again. Let's see if GT can come up from underneath 93's shadow that they left them under from the grand finals, and maybe even persevere and win this Grand Prix out.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything is possible. I've got the bracket up on the screen, by the way, so we can sort of see the history of what these teams have had to endure and conquer in order to make it to this point. 93T had to beat 1V, which is not an easy thing to do. They also then beat GY16, okay? And now they're in that 2 out of 3 situation versus 60GT, who, in turn, had to beat YYDS and then VoK, which, Ruz, you and I cast that last week, and that was a great match. So I'm really hyped to see kind of who wins between 93T and 60GT, and I mean, I think it's honestly a toss-up. If we go with where people put their Oryx, then we would say 60GT is favored to win. If we look at who won last time these two teams duked it out, well, 93T is actually favored to win. So this is going to be all about adjusting, I think, right?
Well, 100%. I mean, especially like you said before, it's a best of 3, and there's a lot of wild card plays that you can really pull out, especially when it comes to some of these skills that were newly introduced, so like master strategy, or even sneaky tactics. We haven't seen much of that. I think we saw it one time. Was it last week? I think we saw it one time. But yeah, there's a lot that can be done, and like you said, adaptation. So best of 3, who can really match the other team's strategy the best? Winning the first game. Sure, it's good for momentum, and I think that's what 93T is really playing around right now, especially coming out of the OL season and the last matches from Grand Prix. So it's going to be really interesting to watch how each team plays.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like historically in the grand finals, what we see is a team wins and then the opposing team adjusts, counters what the team had done, wins, and then you go to 3 rounds. That's typically kind of what happens in the, Osiris League Grand Finals. And there's just a lot you can do to adjust to an opposing team's strategy, even with the fog. Now, at this point, there is a good body of footage of what all the teams are doing, right? Like, we've been casting all these matches. I think it's very intentional that there's a lot of coverage of all of these games so that everyone kind of has access to the same information, whether or not you played one of these teams or know someone who's on one of the teams. Like, you've got visibility to all the same sort of building blocks. Everybody has access to that information. So, you'd think if you're going to do something to counter the opponent's strategy, some of that information should already be known. I mean, hey, look, you and I go way back, right? We were playing this game back when you had to have scouts. You remember this?
Yeah.
You remember when Osiris teams had dedicated scouts that would go in and see what other teams were doing and try to, spectate games and, get into alliances or get footage of the games. Remember that?
I mean, I still think it's not even just an old thing. I think it's even, really evolved now. There are a lot of teams, especially when it comes to higher seeding and even regular Ark of Osiris. There's a lot of teams that want, footage from these games to see whether or not, or how well a team plays when it comes to Osiris League. So you'll often see, in some channels, some Discords, within the community, there will be some people asking for any footage on these teams, especially from
Wow.
regular season. It's really competitive. I actually enjoy it a lot.
Nice. Well, it's time to jump into the game. We're going to find out who will win round 1. 93T versus 60GT. Let's go into the match here. Here we are, folks. We've got full visual range of everything that's happening. As a reminder, the stream is on a very healthy 12-minute delay, making it so that it's going to be very difficult to actually look at what's happening on our screen and learn something that the players of the match wouldn't have already figured out on their own. So, definitely, I don't know. I mean, how close of a game do you think this is going to be? Like, I think this is going to be really close. I don't think this is going to be a blowout situation.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, these two teams are really, really good. I mean, they're very well known, especially in the community. I mean, not only just for the KVK, but 93 recently, wow, like they've been doing so good in Osiris League. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. It'll come down to maybe 1 or 2 arcs. We know that 60GT is very, very dominant in middle, but maybe we see that 93 is able to really push structure game to be able to overcome the arc difference in mid, but we'll see.
Yes, sir. I don't know which team is going to dominate which aspects of the game, quite frankly. The one thing I can count on, I think we all can count on, is that if you win the arc, you'd better expect 93T is going to go for it on the backside, right? Like they're going to swing around to your side of the map, and they're going to try to take that arc from you. Here we go.
Right.
Matchup begins. All right. Drop your hype into the chat. Best 2 out of 3 makes it into the finals. This is round 1, 93T versus 60GT. A revenge match of sorts because, as we were describing earlier, they have fought in the Osiris League Grand Finals. Both of these teams are in the international servers, which, I feel like the international servers and the Chinese servers are, I would say, like, the skill level of the players is very comparable all the way around. Like, I wouldn't say that one group of servers seems to be, like leaps and bounds above the others, right?
Yeah, I think they're definitely very comparable, like you said. I mean, we are down to only one team from the Chinese servers left, and that's A97 in the series with 489. So maybe if 489 is able to pull a quick 2-0, or they drag it out to a 2-1. We're going to be left with international teams only when it comes to the grand finals.
If that does happen, that is true. So,
Yep.
To your point, the matchup just happened. I think it finished not long ago. It was a 12 UTC matchup. And that game was so close. I don't want to spoil it because you should seriously watch the replay of that game. You told me what happened, and I was like, OMG, that is insane. So that matchup is just like crazy close. And at this point, I feel the teams are all so good. Like, if a team just has a bad day or a good day, that could be the difference between whether or not they're going to be advancing, quite frankly. So, hopefully for the teams that are battling today, they're feeling like they're having a good day. 93T moving downfield, looking like a very standard opener. I mean, it's funny because these teams have really locked in what a meta opening is, and there is so little variability. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I think when it comes to an opening like this, the at most that a lot of teams are looking to further optimize would just be what marches should we be sending to opening, because I think which building or where our troops should be on the map has been pretty defined for a little bit now. It looks like both teams are opting for, I think it's 4 cav marches, either 4 cav marches or 3, and rarely seeing any infantry here. The only infantry that I'm seeing are a couple Scipios from 93 side, but
right.
If I take a look at GT side, there's not a lot of infantry at all. Like, it is fully cav dominant, actually.
Yep. So your infantry have a base march speed of 65, archers have a base march speed of 70, cavalry have a base march speed of 80. And that base march speed increase it's super relevant. Your percentage base boosts for march speed are off of those base stats. So infantry are just slower, and so much of this game mode is about your physical position on the map. Where are you? Where can you get to? And I love seeing Ethel Trajan, bro. Like, first of all, Ethel, free to play. So that's like huge W for your free to play players that Ethel is like being used here. But then, you know, I'm just particularly partial to Trajan, mostly because, you know, I mean, when you work on a commander, you want him to be good, sort of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%. I mean, we've both been back and forth with Trajan for quite a while, but I think when it comes to Arc, we both agree that Ethel Trajan is, you know, a must-have. Like, it's so defining on the field. It's
so weird too, because like I kind of wouldn't have expected that, given people have access to all the commanders. Now. Right. We do have information, obviously, about Herman Prime and Ashurbanipal on their way into the game, but they are not here yet. They are not in today's matches either. So, although the players have access to literally every commander, they do not have access to the unreleased commanders. Although it would be cool to see those commanders in action, I think it would be kind of uncool to switch up the meta in the middle of the tournament. Ideally, I would think that stays kind of locked up to the same meta from start to finish, right?
Yeah, I think so. These Desert Altar fights here, pretty interesting. Looks like 93 managed to get a really forward position on CCGT's Desert Altar on the bottom side of the map.
It's actually
so really great position for them, actually.
Like, I'm almost like not even inclined to look at the Desert Altars, because at this tier of play, you kind of expect both teams to be able to defend their weak side altar pretty comfortably. But that's kind of not what's happening. GT is a little outmuscled at their own Desert Altar here. Now, I would assume that after they pour it in, they'll run up some marches, they'll sort that out. But where is GT if not here? They're at the Shrine of War, maybe? Kind of?
I don't... Little bit. They I think they had a couple marches present there. It doesn't look like it was a lot of people, though.
Uh-oh. Mayo. Paging Mayo. Enter into the Shrine of Life, please. Paging Mayo. There we go. Hey, look, when you're managing multiple marches, it can be difficult to keep track of you know, ones that are off to the side with side objectives. And for me, that little moment there that highlights even the best players have other stuff they need to be doing. So, you know, in organizing ARC, you know, back in the day, it's been a minute since I've done this, but I would try to make it so that people would only need to look at like one place at a time, you know? And
yeah,
I get that there are games that require super high APM, but, you know, look, I think it's wherever possible ideal to make your players have less mental burden. And it is a huge mental burden to have to think about multiple marches in different places at the same time, right?
100%. I mean, but that is also, like, the other side of that would be it allows for a lot of individual skill expression
100%.
For players that are able to, you know, really flick between marches. Because it does actually have a benefit to having a lot of marches around the map. You're able to do a lot more things and be a lot, you know, very flexible on where your troops are on the map. Because like we talked about before, it's very important to know where your marches should be on the map and at like what certain time, right? So rotations are a really big thing in this game. So a lot of players that with the PC update, with shortcuts, it makes it a lot easier because you can really flick between each march really quickly.
Yeah, I love that, by the way. And you are right. Like, what we're seeing going on in the backfield over here is almost certainly one of those higher skill expression moments. Although I say that, but it's actually, like I said, you put, you know, ideally one player, this is in this case, two players, with all their marches kind of in the same spot. I also really like what they did here. So first of all, I need to issue a correction. I thought that GT was in trouble at their Desert Altar, but they actually capped it no problem. And also, I really like that GT was in this back line. The reason I like it is that they took their 5 or 6 marches between two players, you know, a total of that many marches. They took the outpost, which is point disruption. Then they went in and they're attacking the marches that are almost certainly on their way to the mid-fight, weakening them ever so slightly, but getting sad-faced with 4 minutes 30 left, they're going to make it to the mid-fight on time, I think, right?
So from that spot, for cab marches, it's usually about like a minute 20, a minute 30 back to their city.
Yeah.
And from spawn to middle is roughly 2 minutes. So
Yeah.
you can expect them to be there about 1 minute before arc. So it really just depends how long each team waits and
Okay.
stalls out the fight. That type of play is, it's kind of a hit or miss. It really, again, it comes on skill expression where you're using a handful of marches to weaken marches on the way, but your marches would already be low because, like you said, they were hitting the outpost. If those marches that are walking to mid from, so in this example, it would be 93 side, if they decided to turn on them, as a whole and quickly kill them off, then they wouldn't really be able to put out that much damage. But if they do leave them out for a while, then they can get them quite low, and it does affect the mid performance of those marches.
Yeah, sure does. By the way, I'm going to be really curious to see if provisioning happens in this game. I think it's almost certainly going to be a yes on that one. That I would expect to see 4,000 to 5,000 points of provisioning here from both teams. And, it's worth calling out that teams have access to equipment here. And the equipment, look, it just goes such a long way for gathering specifically. The gathering speed boosts are pretty massive on the equipment, especially with like legendary equipment, which they've got access to the legendary gathering set in here, right?
Yes, they do. So, if anyone doesn't know, Grand Prix rules is each player gets one piece of every single legendary, 5 pieces of every single legendary gear in the game, as on top of 5 million of each troop, every legendary commander in the game. Yeah, so it looks like 93 is getting a forward position here on the temple in middle, so it'll benefit them a lot.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's
On the player
curious.
position,
Like they have a forward position, but they have to walk further. Like GT doesn't have to walk as far, so there's that kind of upside for them of grouping up. Like we've seen 1v really exploit that. It doesn't look like much of a walk distance, but that sort of half canyon length that goes to the entrance to the arc. 1v has exploited that to really turn fights where like they're getting their marches into the fight faster, and the enemy is getting into the fight that much slower. Ooh, that sentry placement getting forced off the map. Really nice play by 93. And like a little aggressive in hindsight from GT, right? Like GT didn't have the field where they put that sentry. And so 93 just kind of walked up, tapped it, walked back, pretty much unscathed, no punish. So that was probably, like, I understand why GT wanted to put the sentry there, but a little aggressive. Easy to see that in hindsight, right?
Yeah. So it looks like Total Vision comes out for both teams. They're popping it a bit prematurely just to be ready. No other skills yet. 1 minute 10 until the arc spawns. It looks like 93 actually formed up a little bit back from their forward position. Maybe it was to collect some more reinforcements.
Yeah. I really like that. Also, like, not a coincidence that you've got a double C scouting over here. Although, I don't know, they've got vision of that area. I don't think they need to scout that little corner. Yeah, the double C is like, wait, why am I scouting, bro? And he goes backwards. I think that makes some sense. I generally really like scouting as something you do to sort of make sure your enemy is where you think they're supposed to be. But in this instance, 93 has the information. It's GT that really needs to be doing the scouting since they don't have perfect information.
So dust up pop for both teams. That means they need to, they're looking to engage really soon. 25 seconds till arc. They're both waiting to the very last second until it spawns.
There's
and
the
now
break.
We see the fight happening.
Here we go. Both teams digging in. Who's going to win? Looking around, by the way, I see a lot of Zuge Boudica from GT. Zuge Nebu was one of the pairs I saw, which I don't hate. I mean, what's not to love about Nebu march speed and area of effect damage? Rest of the map is fairly stable, although a few structures are blinking. This mid-fight is really kind of where the action is. And I like to be zoomed in to see the glorious combat, but zooming out gives us a sense of the sad faces. And it looks like there are more sad faces for 93. In fact, GT, nice grab on the arc. This is big. That carry was really well played by GT.
Yep. So they managed to run it quite far, and getting these really early pickups is insanely helpful, right? Because bringing the arc closer to your side of the map allows for your refresh troops to make it to the arc quicker than the enemy because they have to walk further, right? So every little pickup like this and being able to walk it, even just a couple, centimeters, meters, really plays a part. But it does look like 93 is managing to clean up GT's marches in the end.
Yeah, it's surprising because like I thought the sad faces were going more one way, but now it's like all GT sad faces and 93 might be left holding the arc, which they are. 93 moving the arc. Oh wow. I mean, if 93 can threaten to take arcs when they lose them and can just outright win arcs, they're going to be really hard to beat.
Yep.
That
it is quite interesting because GT
impressive.
was, coming into the fight, they were known as the, oppressive arc mid, like dominant team.
Yeah.
And 93, on the other hand, was more of the structure game. But it looks like 93 does end up beating GT in middle and getting first arc secured. They also hold on to enemy Shrine of Life, which is pretty good point denial.
Oh yeah, I mean this
93.
is point denial. It's march speed. It's health. And hey, look, like yes, 60 GT has the reputation for winning the mid brawls, but like remember that's in regular league where they've got their equipment,
right.
And that's an advantage. Right. And they don't have that here. It's a level playing field, and
exactly.
93, I've always felt benefits a lot from that playing field being completely leveled out, and we see it really coming to fruition in that mid fight where they get the W.
It really comes down to what each team decides is the meta for, what 5 marches do we bring to mid and how many of them, right? So the amount of time and experience that each team puts into collecting this type of data will really help them, especially in cases like this where they're on an equal playing field. So the impact is severely huge because of commander choice. It's huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's either skill or commander choice. And like you could say, well, or talent choice. Like it is remarkable how much of this game we take for granted because they're sort of solved problems, if you will, from our perspective as players who've been here a while, right? Like what talents do you use is kind of solved. Like there are builds. We kind of know what they are. A bunch of people have made videos about that. Right? Like, so you can figure out what builds to use. So once you isolate all the other variables, like kind of know what equipment to use, we kind of know what builds to use. It comes down to like, okay, so what pairs are you using? And to some extent also, are you better at the mid fights? Like it's not easy to target cleanly and move cleanly in the field in those really cluttered mid fights, right?
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of individual skill expression. Being able to rage hop perfectly is something
not
that
easy.
It's not easy, right? And it really helps your team to be able to nuke marches down. But another thing on top of that is making sure you kill marches, because leaving even 1 or 2 of someone's marches up that are really crucial debuffers. For example, leaving a Guan alive, silencing 3 of your team's marches every 8 turns is pretty impactful. So being able to fully finish these marches is going to help a lot.
Yeah. A lot of Ethel running around the field. I mean, love to see the Ethel Trajan running around the field, baby. And I mean, to your point earlier, there are a few Archer marches, but not many. In fact, I feel like there's like...
It looks to me about 1 per person.
Yeah.
Definitely no more than 1.
Yeah. There might be a non-Archer march per player. It's either going to be your Skippy with Liu Cha, which is so powerful, or it's going to be your Boudica Zhuge Liang, which, like, yeah, big Archer damage. And everybody's using Ottoman Civilization, pretty much.
Yeah.
March speed, skill damage boost. I mean, I've been saying for years that Civilization is goated for field and goated for arc, and, like, here we are, man. Best of the best. That's what they bring.
Yep. So to me, it looks like just from what I'm seeing, it's Ethel Trajan, it's Scipio Liu Che, and then it's 3 cab marches. So from GT side, it looks like it's Huo Justinian, Joan Nevsky, and XY William. It's quite similar to 93 as well. So I think anyone like really paying attention to these arc fights or arc matches and trying to improve their own team, these are the marches that your team should be aiming for, really, because they do make a really big difference.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I actually see a Natalia Chandra.
I wasn't gonna say. It does look like, the moment you're like, oh, look, here's what all the teams are using. And so then somebody's got an Attila, which is Attila Chandra. So why would you do that? Attila has a pretty big attack debuff, and Chandra's got a health and defense reduction, right? That's I think what you're up to there. I think that's actually
so.
like not an accident. That's like a very technical play for swarming.
No, every single march that you see on the screen is on purpose. I don't think anything that you see will be an accident, unless we see the occasional Henry Liu, when you auto send a march out and those are the defaulted commanders. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, 93 is holding the arc. It makes sense that would happen. That to me signals that they feel they are stronger in the building game or think they're even in the building game. And if we look at the board, I mean, is that true? I mean, GT is gaining on points. If GT was gaining 120 points per minute for 10 minutes of advantage, I mean, that it starts to add up, but it's not going to offset the arc. So, I think 93 must feel like they're pretty even. They win this arc. And the thing about holding this arc is that if they can't get a building advantage, then it all comes down to like the second arc being absolutely critical, right?
Right.
You leave it to just one more arc of what will decide the game. I generally like to just score arcs, bro. I mean, I'm a little aggressive in that front, but I think that like holding arcs was originally something that teams didn't do because they didn't see the value in it. And then way too many teams just started holding the arc without really understanding why they should or they shouldn't. And I feel like we're in more of a mid place now where teams have a better sense of, yeah, like we might hold the arc for a little bit to manipulate our field position and be advantaged when we are going to have the next arc fight. But teams are, I think, better at scoring it when it's appropriate and not sort of putting themselves into a bad position because they held the arc themselves. I mean, I can't even count the number of games where teams have held the arc where they really shouldn't have, and it cost them pretty dearly.
I think that's mainly because of, over time, a lot of teams have really experimented like when is the perfect time to cash an arc or when is the perfect time to hold it. It all just comes down to like how much can you actually affect the game's tempo with this cash in, or like how much value does cashing in the arc now really bring for my team in the long run, right? So whether that comes from can we take this building and have it ready before the arc fight, so the enemy team has to make a choice. Do they want to take it back or go mid? Stuff like that. Or maybe even skill points. Like, will we have more skill points than the enemy, or will we be able to afford these type of skills? But again, that just comes with experience, and I think teams that play more arc will benefit a lot more in this type of, like, in this area of the game.
Here we see an assault on the desert altar. Rallies in with Justinian. Justinian seems pretty uncontroversial, doesn't it?
I think Justinian is the go-to. Cavs, again, like we talked about, are extremely popular. So being able to have a rally that moves down the field really quickly to match your attack timing is important. Another thing is it's a good garrison holder. Jan YSS or Jan Hera is pretty popular.
Yeah.
We actually see a Jad inside the building.
I was surprised to see that. Yeah.
I think that was because of her mobility tree. So they didn't have her in a rally, so they decided to walk her up.
Wow. That's actually kind of smart. So, I mean, you think they use the mobility talents just to like try to rapidly move the garrison downfield?
Yeah, I definitely don't see disadvantage of doing that. Sure, you lose a couple talents when it comes to actually defending a structure, but in the long run, capturing the structure on time and having a garrison ready is also equally as important.
It is really funny. Like, I wouldn't suggest Jadwiga at this point, but I can totally see why someone's like, I got a march free. I'm going to run my Jadwiga. Like they're already captaining one thing and they need to get a garrison downfield. So it's like, if you happen to have the march free, you roll to the downfield position. And look, if Jadwiga is the best you got, then that's the best you got.
Yeah. I mean, even from experience, I like playing in the Grand Prix last year on the 254 team. My role was one of the like flexible roles where you defend an outpost, and we actually used Jad YSS. This was before Yarn came out, but we used her mobility tree to not only garrison an outpost because she's a solid cav garrison, but also to arc run or even run down a lane with the cav march just because of that speed. So it's definitely a good choice.
Yeah, I think those versatile commanders are way more valuable when you don't just have access to all the equipment, right? Like in regular ARC gameplay, it really does make a bigger difference for sure to have that versatility. And it is worth calling out that, like, hey, look, in this game, I mean, anyone who's set up their talents and equipment on a garrison captain can run that into a structure and have the meta ready to go. So you see a lot of filling marches end up being garrison captains just for ease of swapping. Although, look, you know what I've not seen at all this match is like proper filling marches. I mean, there's double C filling marches, but who's the secondary here? Caesar. So that's a proper filling march, right? Caesar with the march speed and the troop cap. But you don't really see any Caesar Freddies or Freddy Caesars, which you did see that a little bit earlier in the tournament, and I have not seen that at all ever since.
I think when it comes to Caesar Freddy, it's not something that, like, for example, if we're looking at the bottom side Desert Altar, right? GT's one that's being attacked, you wouldn't send a Caesar Freddy here to fill, in my opinion. You'd rather send a fighting march so that you're able to field fight and then put it in the structure. I think
agree.
Caesar Freddy's role is more for keeping a structure full when it's time to like leave it, and that way it takes less amount of people, so it'll take one less person to fill the structure, so you have one more march heading towards middle.
Yeah, I've always been a advocate against the sort of, high march capacity, low utility field march that, the sole job is kind of filling. I've always been against that because it just doesn't feel versatile enough to me. And the number of times that I've seen, those marches being, worthless fighting in the field, it's too much, man. there's too much potential for you to need to fight. I feel like, pretty much all marches should be capable of fighting, with the exception, to your point, of when it's just like a completely free refresh, right?
Right.
But even then, like, if you're going to swap in a different march, it can't fight in the field very well, So you go to swap that march out, bring in a fresh march, and it's like, all right, now I'm going to hit you with this wet noodle. I don't know. I've always felt like the upside is too minimal, personally. I can see why you'd use the double C with Caesar, though, right? The triple C, because that at least marches really, really, really fast. Whereas, like using a Freddy pairing is kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Although in this sort of scenario, like structures are going down so fast because of swarms, and even when there's a rally on top of it, that having the extra troop capacity doesn't matter that much. You'd rather just have more marches cycling in anyway. So I think this is one of the cases where you can have probably the most skill expression in an arc match, is how well can players in your lane microfill the structure, because that's going to be quite impactful when it comes to having a point advantage by the end of the game, because holding altars for even a couple more minutes than the enemy is a huge point deficit.
Yeah, I agree. Also interesting to see 93 here kind of opts to clear the field rather than push on this garrison. It looks like GT just had a really great field presence in this particular defense. They were able to take out the rallies, so 93 was kind of stuck clearing field. Now their marches are all low, and they're just going to wipe them on the building just to go home, I think. I don't think there's no chance they actually take the building. Look at those marches all just pop. Yeah, they're just trying to get home quickly, which 1 minute left on the arc. There's a lot of reason to get home quickly here. So once they score this arc, we got about 8 minutes until the arc spawns. And at that point, there will only be 22 minutes left in the match. So it could very easily be a 2-arc game here. That's how it's being positioned. So to me, that signals that 93 deeply respects the GT mid game to the point that they don't want to do very many mid fights at all, right?
Right. And as long as they hold a point advantage when it comes to occupation, it's definitely in their favor to do that, because if they don't value their mid as strongly as GT does and stalling less arcs, then arcs, by the end will have less of a turnover, because the less arcs there are, the less points that each arc gives. So this will be the second arc. If it's the very last one, then it's only worth 4,000 points, which can very easily be overcome by a structure gap or occupation skill gap.
I don't know, man. This fight at the desert altar, the timing of this is pretty good, right? So they
Right.
hold this DA. GT is kind of stuck in the mix here, taking this thing back. Then they're going to have to reset. Then they're going to have to go to mid. I mean, they've got a couple minutes to wrap this up. But if this tussle's still going on at the 5-minute mark, I don't know how they're going to get to mid in time.
Yeah. So 7 minutes 10 until arc.
Yep.
You'd probably want to start marching by 4 minutes. I mean, these teams are starting to engage by the 20-second mark, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go the whole way and just start walking by 3 minutes or 2.5. But you never know. For 93, being able to fully cap this DA is pretty insane, to be honest. Not only is it point denial for GT, but now they're starting to gain points from it. It's really, really big for 93.
Yeah, GT just now starting to swarm the structure with the rally. So both teams, I feel like, generally opting to clear field, then push the garrison, which kind of makes sense. Although once the rally gets there, I mean, you push with that rally, get that
100%.
pressure to the 12x swarm, right?
So this is where we start to see it's the decision making for the overall team. Like, when do we actually send to mid? So we see GT finally retakes their DA, and 93 is in a reset position. So are they deciding now to send back to the DA and do one more push, or are they going to start walking to mid?
I think they go mid. I mean,
Yeah. So it looks like 93's top side is now going mid. So 6-minute mark. If you want to be in mid by 2 minutes, then you need to send at least 6 minutes before, or roughly at the 6-minute mark.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed. But 93 is going to push again, dude.
Yep.
They're going for it again.
It looks like their bottom side is going again. So from their bottom side, so I'm talking from 93's perspective, right? So their bottom side obelisk, from there to middle is about 2 minutes 30 roughly on average for all 3 troop types. Whereas for GT, it's roughly 2:17. So it's quite the same. They can delay about 1 more minute of fighting, but if they do come come to mid late, then it might actually cost them the arc.
For 93 being late, right?
Yeah, for 93.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
For 93 being late.
This is like, we just finished talking how this arc is really critical. Do you think they're going buildings? Do you think they're actually
Maybe.
just going buildings here, bro?
They are sending their top side, and as well as like 1 or 2 people from spawn to middle. But it looks like the bottom side is going really hard. I mean, we'll see, I guess.
I feel like the worst thing you can do is like kind of commit to middle, but not enough to get it done, and then not enough committed to buildings to get that done either. Like failing at both things would be really bad. And this is a big commitment happening on screen right now. Now, in this instance, however, I will point out that GT is matching that commitment to structure defense. So GT is also kind of taking a hit for what they're going to have available in the mid fight at this point.
Yeah. So, like I said before, so from 93's obelisk to middle, it's like roughly 2 minutes and 20 seconds, right? But they have a 10-second recall timer because their marches are dead. Whereas GT, they have about 40 or 50 seconds, depending on where you are on the obelisk. So actually, 93 might make it to mid in time if they were to send, quicker marches or be a refresh instantly. I mean, we start to see here that 93's marches from the DA. So an example that I was looking at is Super. His drone is walking to mid 1 minute 13, whereas GT, they're still walking back to their cities.
Yeah.
So quite a bit hit on timing. Maybe 93 uses it to their advantage, or maybe they just wanted 1 more hit at the DA to see if they can steal it away during arc.
What timing, by the way? I got to look at the Shrine of Life just to see if 93T is able to sneak that with just a single rally on that now. And it does not look like that's going to be the case. That would have been so valuable for 93 if they could sneak that Shrine of Life. But Looks like that play is unlikely to go to fruition. I don't know. Actually, this is closer than it should be. There's a GT March walking by. Dude, it's a Cleopatra with cavalry, baby.
Oh,
I didn't but they should have put that in the garrison, right? Maybe
if they think that they can hold it with just those marches, then it would be in their benefit.
I actually don't know what happens if a gathering march has resources and it goes into the garrison and dies.
It does not have. It doesn't give you any points.
You lose the resources.
Correct, right. So if it goes into a structure and dies, you lose the resources. But if it dies on the field and returns home, then you get the resources from what you gathered.
And is the quantity of resources you get impacted by the number of troops still left or that are severely wounded? I don't think so, right?
Oh, actually, I don't think so. I'm not sure on that, but I don't think I've heard anything on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because, like, logically, it would make sense if you don't have enough troops alive anymore to have the capacity for the resources. Why do you still get the full amount of resources? But, hey, yo, it must just be those remaining troops are really committed to bringing home all those resources, right? That's what it is.
Holding the arc the full, 14 minutes or 14 and a half minutes, it means both teams have full skill bars. So, what do you think both teams are going to pop here? Like, what are the common skill combinations that we've been seeing? I think To the Death and Vision Up are the two popular ones.
There's Total Vision already. I mean, I think it's
Total
To the
Vision.
Death, Total Vision for sure. Both teams are going to do it.
Right.
I think that's a safe bet, and I think that's a fine play.
Yep.
This is going to be.
I would agree.
This is going to be what determines it. I mean, if GT can get this, they can totally win this matchup. But if they don't get this,
100%.
we're in GG territory. Now, here's the thing. There's still a lot of room for stuff to happen. What do I mean by that? So let's say GT doesn't get this arc. They could still take the arc on the backswing. That's a thing they could do. I mean, they know 93 would try to do it. They could try to do that. GT Dust Up.
Oh, that's interesting. So now they're locked in at 4 points. The only two skills that they can cast are Mystical and Heavens.
So they're going Heavens. Yeah, there it is. Heaven's Grace.
Look at that. So GT goes with Heavens, Dust Up, and Total Vision. 93 goes with Total Vision and To the Death.
That's really exciting.
Right. So this is where a lot of that research comes into play. Teams experimenting with a lot of different combinations of skills, what count as what. Let's see if GT is rewarded with their skill choice or maybe even punished.
I don't know. From a sad face standpoint, they look very rewarded right now.
Oh, yeah.
That one super technical play may actually be the difference maker. Look at this arc. I mean, who'd have thought that all that healing factor for 10 seconds makes a big difference at the start of this fight? I mean, it completely negates area of effect damage. Maybe not completely, but...
Not completely, but I see what you're trying to get at, yeah.
A march that's not directly targeted is only taking AoE, but they're healing, what is it, like 4,000 heal factor a second? Is that what it is?
No, 1,000. So it's
1,000
healing is 1,000 per second for 20 seconds. So in total, they're getting roughly a 20,000 heal factor.
20 seconds? Are you sure it's 20? I think it's 10.
Yes. No. It's 20. It's 1,000 for 20 seconds.
Holy.
So it's total of 20,000.
That's a lot of heal factor, man.
And that's for all troops on the field, which is pretty big.
Wherever they are, whatever they're doing.
Wow. So
and look,
GT. I mean, I'm not going to put it lightly. It looked like they wiped the floor with 93 there. That's
that was the way I would call that. Ruz is decisive. I would call that a decisive victory. But now is the most critical moment. Are you ready? This is the moment where they either properly escort the carrier or they're going to get assassinated by 93T on the backswing. I have predicted this time and time again. It's what 93 always does. If GT is not ready for this, there's no excuse. They've seen it. We've all seen it. We've talked about it time and time again. You have to be ready for a 93 sneaky maneuver. I mean, these guys used to intentionally lose arcs to win on the backswing and have good timing for it. So I would just be really careful here. And I don't know why this arc is going where it's going. First of all, it's an Archer March, which is really tragic because that thing is super slow. Second of all,
this is the correct play.
why are they going to an outpost?
No, so looking at the top side of the map, 93's entire inner lane is walking to the arc carrier.
Of course
and on
it
the bottom
is!
side of the map, 93's entire lane, actually, besides
my God.
2 people, is walking to the DA.
This is not a question mark. This is known they will do this. It is like,
Yep.
there are few things you can bet the farm on, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that expression. There's few things you can bet the farm on, but one of those things is that 93 is going to go for the arc again if you think you've got it.
I think as long as GT is proactive and their marches are refreshed quickly, so that they can kill these marches, just walking through them, they should be able to clean them up on the way. But I mean, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. So in this regard, going over here to the outpost might be good. I don't know if they're going to the outpost or the caravan. I originally thought outpost, then I thought caravan. Now it looks like outpost again. So I'm a little unsure. I think even they're a little unsure. They're going back and forth now.
Yeah, he's going back and forth.
Yeah, where do I take this thing? And he's not wrong to be anxious. Like, if I was the carrier, I'd be anxious about what am I supposed to do here? So the outpost is the most vulnerable structure to try to score at because it's got a 500,000 troop capacity. So you can't even
100%.
have 2 full marches in there. And one of those marches has to be the march that's scoring the arc. So it's super, super awkward to hold. And this is dangerous now. Now we are entering the realm of this being a dangerous situation. So the arc is by the outpost, which means it's very capturable by 93. Both the structure is easy to swarm and the arc is now down. So this is the danger zone. And GT has marched that arc right into the danger zone. Now, I don't know where else I would have taken the arc. That might have been the only option. But what do they do about this? So GT is in a pickle for 2 reasons. First of all, they have to score this arc. Second of all, they can't let the building game get out of hand or they're in trouble. So, and the building game, by the way, you can see on the map is getting out of hand. Oh gosh, arc is down. I'm feeling more and more comfortable for GT here though, to be honest.
Yep.
Because
It looks like the marches coming in, 93s are very low.
Yeah, they're fizzled.
They can be killed within a couple skill cycles. Yeah.
It's like the panic and calm meme. I was super panic and now I'm calm, right? Like, okay, I think they're okay now. There was my moment of fear. That moment of fear is, I think, come and gone. Although the arc is still not scored, which, like, I only get more anxious about this. I don't know, man.
I mean, I definitely agree with your point. Like, when it comes to outposts and scoring the arcs on outposts, it's such a coin flip. It's actually quite terrible. A very traumatic experience. I mean, like you said, there can only be 2 marches inside the outpost because it has a 500k capacity, unless the marches are lower. And one of those has to be the arc carrying march. So you have to balance having enough space inside the outpost to score it, as well as not having too little where the enemy can just straight up swarm it and steal it from you.
I think GT should score this arc right away and go for another one. I don't think holding is going to work out well for them. I think that 93 has pushed such a building advantage that holding this arc is a mistake.
I actually completely agree with you. I mean, if we take a look at the
They
points
scored
per
it.
minute.
Yeah, GT figured it out, man. They're like, no, actually,
Yeah.
if we hold this thing, we're in trouble.
570 points per minute to 180. It's honestly quite devastating. So GT finally realized they can't take the structures back, within short notice. So they're not able to overcome the occupation score advantage.
I mean, I think if you're GT, you lock in the thing that you did all season long to win your league season, which is we win those mid fights, baby. Come get some. And I think that with To the Death in hand, they're well positioned to do that for this next arc.
100%. I mean, we take a look at.
We would assume To the Death is in hand. I don't know, bro. They might not even have it on the skill bar. Like, we won't know until they go and use it, if they even have it. Like, there's so many ways this could go because the skills are unknown right now. But we know a couple things. We know that 93 does not have To the Death anymore. So they can't match that level of punch. So I really like the GT call to score that arc.
GT also doesn't have Heavens because that's quite a long cooldown. They
Right.
won't have it up before the next time. I think it's a 20-minute cooldown.
I think it's 10, but it doesn't matter because either way, your Heaven's Grace is not synergistic with To the Death. So,
Right.
Unless strategically you would prefer the Heaven's Grace, but To the Death makes it so your marches cannot receive any healing for the duration of To the Death. So there's some serious anti-synergy with those. Oh man, this game is really exciting. I mean, it's a 500-point game. That is amazing.
When the points are this close, it does come down to stuff like provisioning. Based on the last matches, 93 actually doesn't provision a lot. So in their first game in the Grand Prix, they only provisioned 2,000 points, and in the following one, they only positioned about 700. GT, on the other hand, they provision extensively. So the first game, GT had 4.6k. The second, they had 4.7. So, I mean, who knows? It might actually come down to who can provision the most. I mean, we saw one of the marches on the GT side before, the Clio with Cav.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is a head nod to the old school players, but it might come down to the Gecko Gaming provisioning solution, man. You gotta provision to win. He was one of the first guys who was like, no, trust me. Provisioning is so strong. And I was like, stop it. Why would I gather when I can fight? And then like teams started winning because of their provisions. And it was like, oh, hey, what do you know? That actually is a thing that works really well. Well, I mean, we look around the map and things are even now, but the points per minute are not. And that's because GT still needs some minutes before they start ticking for points on all those buildings they recaptured. I think GT is playing really smart here. I mean, going for another arc is the way to go. And the real question is, in 5 minutes, will they be able to get the arc and have enough time to score the arc? Now, I think the answer is yes. That's a long time. 7 minutes left in the match for this third arc after it's spawned. Like, yeah. They've got time, right?
It's quite a long time. Yeah.
They've got time. So GT is chilling. I mean, they've got to be a little bit stressed, but, right? Like, you get back to your roots, right? I mean, I don't know. How would I hype up my team in this situation? I'd say, look, guys, we're the mid-fight team. We are going to get the next arc. We're going to win. We got to stem the bleeding on structures, get to stable, get to mid, win the arc, win the game, and then carry on to win the series. Like, that's what you're thinking. Here's a big attack from 93, coming from the right side of the Sky Altar, presumably from outside of vision. A lot of pressure here now. Only 4 minutes till the arc spawns. So, Ruz, can these marches that are pushing the Sky Altar now get to the mid-fight? I don't think so.
No, so these marches are kind of locked in. So 3 minutes 45 roughly, and they're only just starting to fight. So from 93's side, on their top side, it's roughly it's actually quite long. It's above a 3-minute march. Sorry, not 3 minute. It's above a 2-minute march from to middle. So if they suddenly died now and then went to their cities, they'd make it about a minute 30 before arc spawns. But because they're still fighting, they're not going to make it when the arc spawns. They're going to be a bit late.
Yeah. To me, this signals that 93 is considering just pushing the building advantage instead of going for the arc. I don't know if that works out, though, because, well, there's 10 minutes left. I mean, you'd have to get a meaningful point advantage per minute. But if you think you could pull that off, you might be fine. I don't know if GT feels like they have to go mid or not. Like, they kind of do and they kind of don't. The matchup is close enough that, like, yeah, they are behind. They do need an arc if they can't fix the building game. Yeah, I think GT does have to go mid, actually.
They do.
They do. They can't fix this building situation in time, especially with the map being what it is.
Like, if they know that 93 is not provisioning as productively as they are, then maybe they have a chance if they were to not go middle. But I mean, we're seeing now that they're starting to do their form up in mid, so it looks like they're going for that mid fight.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
93 always represents like a triple threat. Like, there's the arc, there's the backswing on the arc where they're probably going to take it from you, and then there's the buildings. And that triple threat is really terrifying. Because no matter what you do, you have to prepare for all these different things. And, Arc is all about sending the exact right amount. Well, if you have to prepare for so many different things, you either need to get very good at guessing what the enemy team is going to do, or you're going to overcommit somewhere and then get wrecked when they push you somewhere else.
Yep.
Oh, man. I mean, a minute 38. This mid-fight, it has to happen soon. Wait,
yeah,
is that
a
rally coming in here? This DA is really low, isn't it? No, it's fine.
It's pretty common that teams will set a rally on these major structures. So we see rallies happening on the altars or the shrines. And that's really just to keep the enemy team in check, because they don't want to have the threat of the enemy team emptying their buildings besides the garrison captain and sending that to mid when they don't know. So then they have the advantage in mid, surprisingly. But because they're setting these rallies, they're really keeping them in check to where they can't just suddenly empty their structures to send those marches mid.
Man, this is exciting. Big mid fight. Gonna determine who wins or loses. 93T with a point advantage, 93T with a building advantage, which also in turn is giving them a buff advantage. They've got 5% extra health and march speed.
Oh, so because of those fights on the outer lanes, there are going to be a lot of marches late to this middle fight. I mean, GT has a very kind of backed up position to the temple compared to 93, so they can't afford to stall it out and wait for the marches to catch up. They kind of just have to go. Otherwise, they lose a lot of ground, especially if 93 gets pretty quick pickups.
Really good sentry placement by GT here. Gives them vision. They know that 93 is not so stacked in the middle right now. Yeah, and GT says, okay, go, go, go. Master strategy from 93. Okay, so they're going to take the arc away.
7 seconds. It looks like it's going to 93. If GT can't kill the 93 carrier, then it might just be getting teleported away.
Did they do it? They didn't do it!
No, it looks the arc is still there.
The arc is still there. They ported away their marches? Or did they port them in?
No, they ported them away. So looking at the 93 bottom side obelisk, you see all the marches. Yeah. So one of the risks using master strategy in that case
disaster.
is that skill is only limited to 30 marches. So if you have more than 30 marches inside that skill, then it's a really big chance of the arc carrier not being included in that 30. That's catastrophic.
Oh, what a disaster. Oh my gosh, I'm still reeling from that. I mean, why gamble? That is such a gamble, Raz.
It's a huge gamble. Yeah, it's a huge gamble.
You either win or you lose because of that choice. And I don't feel like they needed to gamble that way. I really do not feel they needed to take that gamble. Like, they could have just fought that fight, and then if they were losing, ported the marches on top of the carrier. Like, there were so many ways they could have done that. That was not full gamble to who wins or loses. I mean, they executed the play perfectly, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was insanely well timed. So they popped that right as the arc spawned, or right after the arc was picked up. It was dropped, but then someone picked it up, and there was only a 3 or 4 second gap before they got TP'd away, or potentially TP'd away. But unfortunately, because there were more than 30 marches, that march was not on the train home, unluckily.
Oh my gosh, GT is, I mean, if I was in voice, I would be laughing with relief over that situation and outcome. Like, the only way you could make that play go better is if you know you're not going to be one of the people picking up the arc, you have to run away.
You have to get out of it.
Yeah, you have to run away.
Yeah.
Like, stop fighting, run.
Yeah.
And they had 30 seconds to run. They could have got out of the way. Yeah. So that's the only way I can think to improve that. Yeah, if you're GT, I mean, you dunk this arc, right? Like, you dunk the arc, break the rim, shatter the glass, and get to the buildings, right? Because that's the only threat now, and I don't even think there's enough time for that to be a threat.
No.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I just really feel like that gamble was completely unnecessary, and it cost them the game here.
I mean, there were a lot of factors that could have went into that decision. Maybe 93 was thinking, we have a lot of late marches. GT might not. We might lose this arc. Maybe we go for a gamble. Or they think that without skill advantage that they potentially lose that fight. Although in the first arc, they had quite even skills and they managed to clean them up. So
yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, bro, to me, that feels like 93 is still in the underdog mentality. Like, that's an underdog play, but they don't seem to realize that they're not the underdog anymore.
So I don't actually think this game is over just yet. There's still definitely provisioning coming into play. Maybe 93 changed from their previous games in Grand Prix to deciding to provision against GT because they got information that GT also provisions. I mean, it's not completely over yet, but it's definitely looking in favor of GT. I mean, 3 minutes, 590 to 380 points per minute. It looks like GT's finally stabilizing their side of structures.
Yeah.
So they just got their Sky Altar back, and they're now generating points on their own Desert Altar.
I don't know how you make up this point difference. The only way is provisioning. Like, you would have to be... You can't get points per minute advantage here. So, because you can't start scoring points from the buildings you take. So even if they wipe the map right now, which they can't, they're not scoring points from any of these buildings. There's not 3 minutes left to do that with. So all you can do is reduce the amount of points that GT is scoring, and that's certainly not going to be enough to offset the difference here.
Nope.
So the only thing left is provisioning, and I find it hard to believe, but like, y'all, it is possible that the provisioning still flips this game. But I find that hard to believe, especially since we spotted a Clio cavalry march in the back provisioning earlier that thought it was more important to keep on provisioning than to get in the structure, which was the right choice. They didn't lose the structure, but like...
I mean, I'm starting to see a lot of 93T's marches walking to nodes now. There's a lot of clears on the bottom side around the outpost.
Yeah, it's
There's a march on the top side shrine,
bro.
It's quite late. It's very late to start provisioning.
Bro,
now.
That's not provisioning. That's desperation.
Yes. Hey, you said it, not me.
Respectfully, like... Yeah, I mean, you and I have been there where it's like the end of the match and you're like, people send out provisioning marches, and it's bad if that's a call that's being made, in my opinion.
100%.
Like, it's dicey if that's the situation. Now, look, they have narrowed the point gap ever so slightly. It's a 1,500 point game. But the problem is there's not enough time. They need more time to do what they're trying to do here, and they don't have it. Oh, wow.
I mean, 1 minute 30. There's not a lot that I can change.
You know what the other problem is with the play that they just used? That, to me, feels like a great play to save for game 2 or game 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a play you use in game 1. You use to seal... You use that play to seal the deal.
They went up quite a bit of points, but I think GT also just went up a lot of points as well. So now it's 33.5 to 35.
It's a 1,000 point game.
1,500 points.
Wait.
Yep.
Nope. 1,500 point game.
1.4.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So GT, we know GT's provisioning. We saw the provisioner from GT earlier. So like, I will be shocked if this becomes a one-sided provisioning situation. And with 40 seconds left, like, bro, like, I know people cut it close to return those provisions, but like, there have been games lost by seconds of a provisioner walking home and not getting there. You do not want to be that guy in this game.
Oh, I've been there before. I mean, it's never lost us the game, but I've had marches sit out my city with sad faces.
You know what I'm talking about, though? Like, it could be just seconds away from getting the W. Like, don't be that provisioner. Like, just get home 10 seconds earlier than the end of the match, But I do like that provisioners really do take it so seriously that they've got that level of precision, but... With 5 seconds left, I think it's unlikely we see the score jump. And there it is. GT with the revenge win after the Osiris League Grand Finals. What a game. Cabo, who I actually used to play with, and we started in the same kingdom back in the day.
Oh, yeah, I know Cabo.
Old school, cool. 241,000 points, and... There it is. GT, 7,500 points of arcs, 30,600 points, however, of occupation score for the Scuffed Tigers. And would you look at that? The 3,000 points of provisioning, bro.
Yep. So we knew GT would be provisioning this game, and we knew 93 most likely wouldn't, and it looks like it was true. I think a lot of the 661 was just from desperation in the last 5 minutes of the game.
It came down to provisions.
Yep.
Provisions won the game.
Gecko Gaming was right.
OMG. Well, my friends, if that's not exciting, I don't know what is. Subscribe to the channel. Also, my channel's linked in the description for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies. Consider subscribing there as well. Big thank you to the makers of Rise of Kingdoms for bringing us onto the official channel, which is where you're watching right now, to cast Ark of Osiris Grand Prix gameplay. We'll be back in less than 30 minutes for the next round of this matchup. This is a 2 out of 3 situation, so in order to advance, GT has to win again. And in order to have a chance to stay in, Scuff Tigers have got to lock in that win. Any thoughts before we wrap this one up, Ruz?
Nah. I mean, stay tuned. We're gonna go to the second game of the series. It's gonna be pretty sick. I mean, this game was already really close.
Fun.
It's super hype.
This is really fun. Like, there's times where you're casting Ark and it's like, all right, this is a little one-sided. But these matches like this, where it's like, yeah, 93 is going to win. GT is going to win. 93 is going to win. It's going back and forth. This is great, man. I'll see y'all in less than 30 minutes for the next round of this insane matchup. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdoms.